I guess we'll just get going, huh?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me start by saying I have the new roster for the Sustainability Commission. So if you guys want to take one and pass it
Team
around.
roster.
Since we have 2 new members.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Todd.
Should give you that one, not the single one.
One hot second, everybody. I'm looking for.
And I'll email it to you, John.
Yeah, you can look at that. Who has an agenda pulled up? I can't seem to find it.
Do you want my printed one? If you give me back.
I will give
For my
it a-
council update.
I think I'll make copies.
It's
I
okay.
know you got your stuff
I'll
right.
borrow
Just one at a time. Oh, you got it?
I'm
Good?
from my-
Okay.
fancy list here. Okay.
So I guess you can't do number 2 since you're not here.
Okay, yeah, we'll just skip that part. All right, are we all ready? All right, we'll call this to order. The second item on our agenda was introduce new members, but Carla and Amna aren't here. And so we will just do that next time. But Carla is the ad hoc member who is going to help us with the sustainability plan. And Amna is just an awesome human and she'll fit in great here. Okay, approval of the minutes. Has anybody had a chance to review those and would anyone like to motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Jeff. Who would like to second? Thanks, Patrick. John, did you get that, friend?
I did get it. I typically don't offer to approve the minutes since I wrote them.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff motioned, Patrick seconded.
Got it.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have some folks, some visitors here today. Liz, hi, I'm Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
So nice to meet you and team. Hi, everybody. Thanks so
Hello.
much for taking a few minutes to
Yeah.
talk with
So
us.
with us today, and thanks to Mike for extending the invite and getting us all hooked up. But we have Larry Chapman with Seneca Commercial Real Estate and Phil Hulse with Green Street Real Estate Ventures. And together, the 2 principals have joined SG Collaborative to respond to the city's request for proposals, what we are calling the Douglas Hill Project.
Great. Thank
So
you
we thought we
much.
would come today. I'm sure you guys have questions that you would like to propose to the developer, and we'll see how best we can answer those.
I'm sorry, can I get your name again? I got Phil's.
Phil and Larry.
Larry Chapman, Philip Hulse.
Thanks.
Thanks,
You're
John.
welcome.
Oh, and forgive me, Joel Oliver, who is with the Green Street team and also Webster Groves resident.
Awesome. Welcome.
So I know you're all gonna have questions, but before you start, could you help me? There's a lot of commissions and boards in Webster Groves. Maybe someone could just explain to me or just give me a brief narrative of what the Sustainability Commission is attempting to do or what your purpose is, so we can better respond to the things that you're gonna care about.
Yeah,
Let the
thanks.
chair introduce it.
We'll do that. We'll let the chair do that.
The commission has been paying close attention to the Douglas Hill project. We have multiple perspectives and experiences, and what we are looking to understand is both the built environment impact and sustainability as it pertains to sustainability, but also the human impact. And so we offered suggestions to the Plan Commission when the Plan Commission was considering their moving it forward to council. And we haven't, at that point, we weren't like, endorsing or not.
Right.
And I'm not even sure yet that we plan as a commission to make such a statement. We want to be as informed as possible, offering various code ideas or in order to make sure that we step into a future that is clean and healthy and also then sustainable for the Webster Groves region.
So one more quick question. Before Douglas Hill, what were some of the things that you've done or contributed or things that I might relate to a little bit in the community?
I think in 2018, maybe 2017, Jeff, you can help me with that. We did things like, have done things like written grants for backyard composters. And right before COVID, we were about to address a campaign of reducing single bag usage in our region. And partnering with grocery stores to help reduce plastic bag use. And then COVID kind of obviously stuck all of our feet in quicksand.
Exactly.
But during that time, we took quite a few meetings to reflect on what kind of commission we wanted to be, and we set some goals. And one of the things that surfaced to the top this year was building a structure to guide us and guide our vision for Webster Groves. And so we are in the throes right now of writing a sustainability plan for our community. And we've reached out to businesses and residents. In a survey form, we've also done a lot of research of other sustainability plans in the region. And we're going to be throwing our Webster spin on that, hopefully at the beginning of next year.
That's great.
I'll throw one more thing in.
Yeah.
So they're also pushing for bike lanes.
Thanks,
We're
Todd.
going to do an east-west bike lane on Lockwood, and then we're gonna do a north-south on Geyer.
Right.
Yeah, Geyer or Edgar.
Edgar.
And
Parkway.
Edgar and Bompard all the way to Marshall.
And is it,
Tying it up
is your,
trails
and
more.
is it mostly then advisory to the city council at the end of the day? Is that what you're?
Yes.
doing?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So we can talk bikes all day to Mr. Phil here. He's a big bike enthusiast. I wish I could say I was, but I just don't seem to do it that often. Okay, well, I think, maybe we can start getting the questions just in 1 second, but I do want to tell you that both Phil and I, when we approach this development, we approach it from the standpoint of creating experiences. We believe in the experience economy, and we believe that, experiences are what make places healthy, vibrant, and we also believe that those experiences ought to be mostly at the pedestrian level. That's where people interact. That's where we believe we should put most of our energy. And then all of the buildings that need to be wonderful, livable environments have to complement that. But if you look at all the plans and really drill down and get away from height and that stuff and focus on what's happening where people are, you're going to see that experiences have a lot of attention paid to it. Phil, I don't know. I know Phil's a big bike enthusiast. He's the guy who's got GRG, Great Rivers Greenway, talking to us, and we've got a lot of discussions to have there, but go ahead.
So I think, Larry's right. Making that personal experience important is kind of what drives a lot of what I've been doing in the city. Urban environment is challenging to bring all the things that you're talking about, but it's kind of the basics of what we do in our developments. I really think that by example, it's important to showcase what we can do in a project. So give you an example. We've built some of the highest LEED certified buildings in St. Louis. And we did that really through users that want to embrace it. So of all people, I got the Sheet Metal Workers Union, who was building a new headquarters, to really think about how do they embrace the future that they're going to be a part of and also train their people. And we were kind of the developer. We helped them select the site, and we helped them really implement a strategy that brought all this to the forefront. And it's a good example of what we like to do in a project, because each one is kind of tailor-made to the site, the location, and who's involved. And if you have a user like the Sheet Metal Workers, they bring a lot of those talents to the table. So they do solar installation. They are involved in implementation of geothermal, wind turbines. They also, because it was a representation, it was also a training center for all these their trade. And so we spent a fair amount of time looking at what people had done previously to really understand what, like in Alberici, one time they had the highest LEED certified building, I think in the world, or one of the top ones in the world. And so we spent a lot of time with a fellow over there that was Taylor or something, I'm forgetting his gentleman's name, but we use them as a springboard to understand why they did it, what did they do, and what changed in their culture. So, part of what we did is really got our head into every aspect. And as we did that, they really amped up what they ultimately did. It became a sense of pride. It was a learning experience that expanded their reach, not only in their union, but nationally, to showcase who they were. And I think they realized how dramatically they could change people's perception of who they were and how they could be impactful. And it included water quality, using the water on the site to run their cooling towers, their gray water. I mean, everything became an opportunity to expand who they were and what they did. And so we've been doing it. We're building a new corporate office in the city right now. So in their case, we took the old neuter building and repurposed it. And we did everything from electric car charging, green roofs, solar. They had 3 times the space and used 1/3 the energy when we got done. So I think, we had some tools to make that happen. That's one of the challenges, because it does cost more, but at the same time, it's saving you money as you operate. So what we did is we helped them use federal energy tax credits. We used the grant from AMRA. We used new market tax credits to help underwrite the additional cost. And then we really just got our head into everything that they were touching. We even created the skin around sheet metal. We did a Luca bond. So everything we touched, we really tried to implement. So I think as I step back here, we have this is a living environment. So bike trails, I'm all for it. We're a big sponsor of the Great Rivers Greenway's effort to do the trail from Forest Park to the Arch and from Tower Grove up to Fairgrounds Park. So part of that is we were on the advisory committee because you really want lots of perspectives. We involve the community. We use local artists to create art. We used really every tool that we could bring to the table, but we really did a lot of research up front. I love the fact that you're trying to connect these dedicated bike lanes, because what biking does is get people out to really experience their neighborhood and to connect with each other, and it creates diversity and opportunity, and it creates economic development. So I think we have had early fronting conversations. How do we get Great Rivers Greenway to extend their trail? So this can be a 34-mile loop with the Grants Trail that everybody would embrace. And I think, when they did the Grant Trail, there was a lot of pushback because people thought, we're gonna have all these people around my backyard. But once it got going, everybody gave it a big hug. And I think, I don't know, it's probably one of the busiest trail pieces of the thing. So that's one thing. Water quality is something we can do, because Shady Creek's kind of a big issue for flooding, but it also is an opportunity with MSD to do water quality. I think we can do solar. That's a natural. It's a way to mitigate on a lot of fronts the energy that we use in buildings, because it's probably 40% of the equation. I think the public spaces can be learning places that we can use to teach what sustainability is all about, which is part of your mission. I think, electric car charging is going to be a huge part of our future. So we're building car charging into our platforms, whether it's in the garage so that we can expand it. I've got Tesla building a supercharging station on our office site, which will eventually be able to charge all cars, because that's where they're headed. They've got thousands of charging stations, and it's going to become a revenue source. So that's something we could certainly look at. I think involving the school system and what we're building here. We've been doing it. A lot of our projects, we bring out Webster Grove students when we did the Olive and Oak to teach them about the construct environment, the built environment, and how you can impact it. And I think taking the long view, which is what we do when we build real estate instead of a merchant builder, we're thinking about how do we create something that people embrace. And right now with climate change being so much on everybody's radar, and the reality is it's moving faster than we are to correct it. So how can we be a good messenger with students, young people, that this is part of what you should do? And I think some of the things is, how do you reduce your consumption? How do we recycle properly? All those things can be a part us interacting with our project and development and support those things. And I think we're here to listen to what you see, but also interact with you and be kind of collaborators here and how we get to a good spot.
Bill, you might want to also mention the Fitwell designation.
Yeah, so one of our projects, it's actually the first one will be done in the state. It's Fitwell. So it's about healthy lifestyle, healthy, and not just exercise, but eating and the whole concept. And it's not a big deal to do that. It's just being proactive about how do you create more consciousness. And Joel can speak specifically about what we're doing that I think is out. And same way with energy. Sometimes we do LEED, sometimes there's other designations that you can get that are maybe more cost effective, not so, there's a lot of bureaucracy in implementing this. We tend to want to do it because it's the right thing to do rather than, well, I got a scorecard. I like doing it on my own and saying I did all these things and I didn't have to pay somebody to give it the bit busing, but there are some merits to doing different certifications.
Sure.
Okay, usually on the multifamily side, we use a standard called enterprise. It's similar to LEED, but it's focused on multifamily or on community kind of living. So it's a similar set of criteria. It's just a little more tailored towards that. Fitwell is really exciting, it being the first one in the region. So that project will open the middle of next year, and none of it's rocket science. It just kind of gives you guidelines to do things a little more thoughtfully. And here locally, I mean, the proof's kind of in the pudding. I mean, we started working with the Olive and Oak guys on the auto beauty building 4 years ago. What most people don't realize is at the time there was an RFP on the street that Walgreens was trying to put a location in Webster. So there was developers from all over the country that were trying to get that building to tear it down, to build a new Walgreens. So, right, like that would have been a lot easier. Somebody would have made a lot more money doing that. But by being able to save the building, by being able to use historic tax credits, I mean, there's $250,000 worth of solar panels on the top of that building. Most people don't know that, right? You know, sourcing those huge windows on the street, those are really hard to get energy efficient windows that big. We ended up having to source them from a factory in northern Wisconsin, you know, but the thermal value, the benefit to the building is huge. So, you know, as a resident here, I think that kind of speaks volumes, kind of the effort to do that. There's easier, cheaper ways to do it, but in the long run, you know, kind of better for the community.
That's a lot, I know.
We could go on forever and ever, but it's more
Becky-
important to ask. to
Becky
listen to your
Mahone,
question.
who's one of your advisor, does a lot of our natural plantings. You know, she helps us with each one of our projects to help implement what is the right plantings that are, you know, native, natural, that really survive and blossom. So I think those are other things because we have a habitat there that's struggling, that isn't really maintained or nurtured. Whereas, yes, we're going to change things, but how do we replace that with a better story and a better environment that helps with all the issues of stormwater, natural plantings that create, you know, less carbon in our atmosphere, but can be a resource to taking that out. So I think, you know, we're here to think together, and we got to make it work economically as well, but we can be very thoughtful, and we take pride in it. And I think it's great that we're at the table with you here talking about it before we start.
I'll ask the first question then. How much of the floodplain are you planning to retain? That's probably one of the biggest questions and issues that I think comes up. And down the street in Brentwood, they're actually knocking down buildings to try to revitalize the floodplain due to flooding. So I think, and with, I'm sure you, as you get to the tip being no longer after January, no longer appropriate for Missouri projects in floodplains. I think that's a big issue that I'd love to hear you guys speak to.
Right, and I'll start it on the legislation part. You're gonna see that turn around in a year. It was a mistake. People were sold. Everybody thought they were voting on Missouri River, Big Rivers, Merrimack, other ones than that. They didn't realize every drainage ditch in St. Louis County was gonna be prohibited from TIF. Only St. Louis County, by the way. It's one of those things that happens in legislative politics, and so I think you'll see that change. We were all in favor of doing that in big floodplains, but not every drainage ditch in St. Louis County should have been captured in that. And that was just kind of a mistake. That's my personal opinion, but I think you'll see that change. In terms of the floodplain, there's been a floodplain there for a long time. It's not going anywhere. What will happen though is we will be making improvements in two forms. One, Right now, every drop of rain that hits the development area pretty much runs right down into Shady Creek and out. It doesn't get, it takes erosion with it, it takes silt, sand, dirt, debris, pollutants, it all goes, and nothing to stop it. And it does so pretty much instantaneously. So what we'll be doing is stormwater management. It'll start with green roofs. So we'll catch the stormwater, we'll filter it through the green roof system, and we'll capture it then into a large storage, detention storage under the road. And then after the storm's over, it will trickle out into the creek at a metered rate. So you won't have it hitting the creek at the same time the storm will hit it. Now, admittedly, 15 acres and thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of watershed. So that's not going to have a huge impact. But at the same time, right now, Shady Creek goes under Gore and it hits a constriction point. The creek's this wide up to Gore and it's that wide after Gore. But when it hits Gore, it hits a constriction point, it backs up and comes over onto Kirkham and goes down across Gore and then goes back down into the creek down by Elm. We're going to rebuild that bridge so that the stormwater can properly pass under that. That will lower the floodplain elevation somewhere between a foot to 2 feet. We don't know the final calculation yet, but somewhere between a foot to 2 feet. So if you look at the flood we had the other day, after the improvements, it would have been a foot to 2 foot lower than it was in August when it flooded.
And how will the creek change? Because I know you say like the water just goes right into the creek, but there's like a natural filtration system. Is the creek going to still be, will it be more like the river to Pear where there's a lot of like concrete that we're looking at?
No.
Or is it going to be like a natural creek barrier?
So right now, if you were to go down in that creek, you would find mostly concrete walls on one side, something they call gabion baskets, which are rock baskets on the north side. On the south side, it's mostly solid rock. It's a rock face. That whole area is solid rock. And so it's pretty much a channelized version now. The bottom is mostly rock, debris, plastic, you name it, because the storms bring all that stuff in. We'll be going in and we'll be taking out the bottom and lowering it and putting in plantings that are natural native Missouri plantings, the Corps of Engineers, and we'll buffer that up. And then we'll have some step ups. A few areas will have to have concrete where we're going under streets and where we have a crossing. But it'll be a stepped up bank. We'll be able to grow plant material all the way up and down the side. So when we're done, it'll look like a living, breathing creek, like you don't see now. You see it more like in Larson Park. It'll feel more like what you see in Larson Park. Then on the north side of the street, we do have an area where we're going to have a pond that will hold and retain water. It will be a wetland of sorts that's between St. John and where we're planning the townhomes that will allow some of the aquatic life to have a 367 habitat, a 365 habitat, which it doesn't have right now. It just doesn't. And so that's really what our plan is. We still have a lot more to do. We just are getting our approval of the floodplain study from Webster. We then have to get it from MSD. We then go to FEMA. We then go to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the Army Corps of Engineers will give us the final blessing. Then we'll come back up and get all of our approvals back down to the local level. And the first thing we'll do is get rid of what's mostly invasive species. If you look at the plants that are down there, very few of them are things you would expect to find in Missouri. Honeysuckle being by far the dominant plant along the creek right now.
And when you get your 404 permit, will the land then, do you have plans to have the wetland that's you'll have to replace be within the St. Louis County lines, or?
If they'll let us mitigate it in the pond, I'll talk about it. It'll be right there, but I don't know what the total mitigation requirement will be. There will be some, but I don't think it's going to be as much as we all think. The Corps walked that creek with us about 8 or 9 months ago, and they said, get us a plan. Help, we need to help this thing. And so they were actually very, very optimistic that we could do something to help that stretch of Shady Creek out.
And just one more, what's the timeline for when your plan will be available for the public?
Well, you
to
can
look
see
at?
all that we have now. I mean,
Sure.
we've done our floodplain study. Then once we get that blessed, we'll go back, we'll start doing the landscaping, and we'll submit that to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Then they'll respond and come back to us. It's a bit of a back and forth, but all of our material is available on our website all the time, and it will be available at City Hall as we have it.
And then each project will go through its own individual.
Right, but Shady Creek's the first time.
Yeah, that'll be
We'll do that
master
right.
macro.
You talked a little bit about green roofs. I'm assuming that's for stormwater management.
It's part of it. It's, you'll catch about 1.5 inches of the rain and then you'll filter it through the plant material itself.
Right. And I think you just also mentioned solar, looking at solar. Can you do both, or how do you
It's a
evaluate?
trade-off. It'll depend on how much green roof we're gonna need and how much we can trade off, you know. I have solar on my house, but I did the area that it would face the right way and get enough sun. Some areas don't, so you can kind of figure that out.
Right.
And if we can get some credit from MSD on doing some water quality in a couple of places, we're gonna pass by them, then we can do more solar because we can do more water quality on the ground.
Okay, okay. And then what are your plans for EV charging? You talked about.
Well, I think it's really looking that we can put it in the parking structures so that it's expandable. I don't want to do the whole thing because we're not there yet,
Right.
but have thought that through, and we're doing it as a revenue source, you know, ourselves. The projects we're doing, so we would use our solar if we had it on the roads to help charge and offset.
Hmm.
It eventually maybe it's part of a battery system where we create it, store it, and use it, so we're not just giving it back to Ameren because they really won't pay us what it's
Right.
worth.
The Old Webster Business District did ask about that also, something that they were interested in, being able to provide to be available to those customers.
And we'll have some public spaces and, you know, both Phil and I drive electric cars and now Joel does too.
Liz is thinking about it.
Yeah. And all of my projects, I put, what I do is I'll put a minimum number of charging stations in, then I'll lay conduit along the road so we can easily add stations as the demand goes up.
Right.
Because at some point it is gonna trickle over. So what you can do is put in the base infrastructure so that you're able to make the conversion really easily.
Does all this stuff, all these details, does that go in the development plan?
It'll ultimately be in the construction plans.
Okay.
The development plan is about zoning and making sure you comply with certain things. And then you go to the next level, which is construction plans. It'll have all of that detail in it.
Okay.
Like, you know, it's, for example, the development plan says we're gonna plant all the trees and silver cells or the equivalent of this big root area.
Mhm.
Well, we aren't gonna draw that till we do the specific plan for construction, but it gives you the idea of what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Well, electric cars are coming, and they're coming in a fast pace, so it's part of being thoughtful and thinking of this up front. I've had electric cars since 2014. It's so much nicer to go home and plug it in the car. I don't go oil changes.
Yeah.
I haven't replaced the pads on my brakes. I got 130,000 because it's got self-generating braking.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many benefits, and I don't go to the maintenance shop like a regular car.
Right.
I go in to change air filters.
Right.
And maybe wheel alignment. They update the computer offline, so it's a much better technology when you get down to the.
Right.
And the cars are gonna get less expensive, so you're seeing
Yeah.
that evolution, which will be helpful.
That's definitely part of the forecast.
Just to clarify, when you say development plan, is that the development agreement between?
So there's a number of things. This is all very good. Let's talk about it just so we get it really clear, okay? So the development plan is a document specified in the zoning ordinance if it's passed, and it says within a year, we'll submit a plan that shows we can do all of these things that we've been required to do. That plan will then be adopted. I don't know if they record it or not, but from then on out, we have to follow what that plan says with each of the buildings that we build. And we have to follow what that plan says for the construction drawings for the infrastructure, which would be the roads, the gathering space, the utilities. I mean, basically, there are no useful utilities in that site at all. I mean, they're all not usable. So we have to replace everything from an infrastructure standpoint, from the road. And then every time we do a set of construction plans, it'll be coming to the city for an approval, and we'll make those available to everybody should you want to see them. Because every permit that they do is public information. No one just looks at it. We suspect that given the high profile nature of the development, people want to come look, which is fine.
And then what's the development agreement?
Well, the development agreement is, it's really called a redevelopment agreement, but at the point where we use tax increment financing, there'll be this over encompassing agreement that says, you, Mr. Developer, will agree to do A, B, C, D, F, and G, and us as a city will allow A, B, C, D, F, and G, and we have to do that, or everything that we been offered goes away. It's a contract that says, here's what you must do in order to use tax increment financing. And so you put all kinds of things in there, like, what is the gathering space gonna look like? What about the workforce housing? What is that gonna look like? All those things can go in that redevelopment agreement. And it's a contract that we have to live by.
Don, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, so a couple of things for you. And I'm sure these are questions that you've heard multiple times, but I feel like, yeah, I have to ask them. So I think that everybody on the commission, we're all Webster Groves citizens who are interested in sustainability, and we come from a variety of fields. Many of us, I think, saw, I'm sure you guys saw it, an episode of the Channel 9 show. I'm blanking on the name of it now.
Donnybrook?
Yeah, Donnybrook, a couple weeks ago, where they had a Earth and Planetary Sciences professor on from WashU, and he referenced your project. He didn't have very positive things to say about it, and they were referencing essentially the stormwater issues. So I know that you just spoke a lot about it, but as someone on the commission, hearing this gentleman who has credentials at a noted school, and listening to what he says, and then we listen to what you say, how are we supposed to come to terms with two very differing views on this? So that's the first question. And then the second question, I think that it really is on the community's minds, really has to do with the density. It's the height of this. I think that people would be much more comfortable if these buildings weren't as tall as they were. And perhaps you can speak about those two issues.
So let's take the first one. Good credentials or no credentials, everything we've been doing, we've been having our civil engineer validate and come out, and he's written letters, he's now done a little video. And what he's doing that none of these other people will do is he's putting his seal, his professional seal on there that says, this is what's gonna happen. If he says things that are not accurate or true, he will lose his seal. And so if there's someone who wants to say we're not doing what we're doing, if they can get anybody who's a licensed civil engineer or other engineers willing to put a seal on it, then I'll believe it. But until they're willing to put their seal on it to risk their entire livelihood, I'm just not going to. What George is saying is what I just repeated to you. He said it many times, he's put it in writing, and his seal will be on every single plan that we do. So I would suggest you look at that. I can't do any better job than that. But what he's saying is absolutely true. And by the way, it's being reviewed by MSD, FEMA, the US Army Corps of Engineers, all very big credentialed operations, and the city of Webster Groves as well.
So we don't get to get everybody's approval until they review all of this up and down the food chain.
Right.
So I think that's something that needs to be noteworthy here. We don't get to just say what we're doing. It has to be approved by all those various public organizations that are watchdogs, and who I've done a lot of projects with MSD. I get scrutinized from one end to the other on each one of these, and we have to go through an elaborate design, engineering, and somebody is constantly looking at what we're doing.
Right. When George Stock's one of the most well-respected, well-known civil engineers in St. Louis.
Absolutely.
So I mean, his reputation, I think, speaks volumes for itself.
Yeah, and so on the height issue, there's a couple things. First, good or bad, we're in a situation where it simply is not economically feasible to reduce the density of the project and finance it. It's just not. I wish it were. Nothing would make me happy and say, you know what, no problem, whack a couple floors off of there and we'll be good to go. But it doesn't work financially. And if there's anybody who can show me that it would, I would be open to seeing that analysis. We've tried it many, many times. It just can't. So what do you do under the circumstances? Well, I don't have my my section here. I think it'll be in an ad that's coming up. When you think about height, there's a couple of things that I'd like you to consider. One, the only view that has any height to it is really from Kirkham looking into the site. Everything else, a little bit from Oak Street looking into the site. Everything else is really self-contained in the site. So if you're not in the site, you really can't see it. It's being blocked by the buildings that we're building. And we've shown many times a cross section where it shows if you're standing on the north side of Kirkham looking through the site, what do you see? And we've showed what the view angle would be for the townhomes, the 2.5-story townhomes. And it shows a view line going up to the roof line of the newer buildings. And we're not showing you that because those townhomes will block your view. We're showing you that because when you're that far away from the buildings, that quote unquote 7-story building, which is really a 5-story building, has the same impact on you visually as standing across the street from a 2.5-story building. It's called a sky plane, and it's because it's set so far back from Kirkham, that's the visual impact that you get. The other thing is that we're on the side of a hill. There's 50 feet of drop from the railroad tracks down to Kirkham. Just is. You get on Rock Hill and ride it with your bike. You'll know right away. And if you put in the new Main Street and you go up 5 floors, 5-story limit, that's how tall we are. Now, there's a garage that's underneath it, which you can see from Kirkham. We've just elected, and we suggest you put some units on the front so it looks pretty and nice rather than looking at the side of a garage. And that becomes 7 stories because we've gone 2 down. It's like a 5-story building with 2 walkout basements below it. And so they're pushed way down low to a place you never really see it. And if we had to go to 5-story buildings, we wouldn't take the top 2 floors off. We'd take the bottom 2 floors off. We'd still have 5 stories and have the same roof line that you'd have before. Now, at what point can you just not take any more off? And we've already reached that point, unfortunately. And so we either have to go with it or walk from it. Sorry, that's the truth, but it kind of is.
Well, I think the other thing that we're doing, we're creating a lot of public space. So if we spread those buildings out and wanted to use all the ground for buildings and lower it, we could do that, but then you lose the
Main Street, you
Main
lose the
Street.
gathering place, you lose the riverway, you end up with nothing more than masses of buildings.
So I think, one of the things that we've built into our projects is incredible amenities that the whole community gets to use. And I think that is part of the mitigating factor you got to look at is what are we creating here that creates engagement, allows jazz festival to occur, or farmers market, or 4th of July events that happens within the city in walking distance. What we're trying to do is create this walkable community that allows itself to engage with and also bring density. One of the challenges for merchants is not having enough people. And we've had somewhat of a declining population in Webster from the 29,000 in the 60s to what it is today, which is under 23,000. So what happens is you as a citizen are picking up more of the freight by less density in some sort. And we can create this in a confined area. And we're very sensitive. If you went and looked at any of our projects, the Olive and Oaks is a good example. We took an existing building, we didn't take it down. When we have an existing building and it's of size and scale that we can do something, we do it. But when you're working with a site that has no infrastructure, no stormwater, that we got to recreate, you got to kind of peel the skin back and recreate it so that at the end of the day, we end up with something that's the future, that has the density, the walkability, and the amenities that change just having a building there. Part of that is having these greenways. Part of it is having walk along the shady creek. Part of it is having water feature that maybe is a pond that you can build this landscape around. And then you're getting rid of all the parking that typically would be out on the street. We're putting underground and under the structure. So I think you have to look at how is urban development done and how do you do it with the right density to underwrite it, to create an economic model. And the city hired their own, they embraced PJV to do their own study and analysis of our economics. What is justified in the TIF to make this work? How do we get to the workforce housing that's not here, that the community would like to have their teachers and people that work in the restaurants to be a part of the community rather than community? So I think some of this is a balancing act of how do you get the right things at the table that offset some of the concerns, but also create this walkable, connected, and we're gonna create a bridge across the Union Pacific. It gets people back into the community. We're gonna create bike trails and help GRG and you implement a bike strategy. That's a better city. And maybe at some point we have a shuttle between us and the different places. We're doing that in the city with electric passenger vehicles that act as a shuttle on demand. So there's lots of things that we can think about that help think beyond the past, but where are we going in the future? How do we create an attractive tax base? How do we create the right amenities? How do we create a better retail space? And one of the things that happened with COVID, all of our restaurants much more embrace an outdoor patio. And that needs to be, that's going to be part of what we create down here is that street experience is going to be something that when I go to Paris, if I go to San Diego and go through Little Italy, what the streetscape and how active that's created. And they've got taller buildings, but it feels very personable and engaged because of how you created it. And what is the landscape?
To that note, Phil, would it ever be considered, would you ever consider that Main Street area to not have parking on it so that there could be more of a, al fresco type of dining availability and more like gathering spaces and.
So how wide is our 35 feet is our sidewalk?
So, well, our sidewalks going out, we have some that's 45 feet out from the edge of the building. We have huge spaces that are built on the plan, but here's the issues that we went through. And it's always a debate like this. And so when we went through our listening process the early part of last year, one of the things we heard was Old Webster and the areas around here really need parking, surface parking for daytime visitors and people don't want to go in a garage. We can put all of our occupants in a garage. We can put all the office people in a garage. So we created a streetscape that is very wide, has plenty of room for all those things you said, but we're going to do it in a way that if the demand for parking goes down, we can easily convert that. It'll all be pervious surfaces anyway, so the rainwater can get through it. And you're going to see big areas regularly spaced down the street that'll have literally as much outdoor space as there is indoor space for restaurants, is what you'll see when you go down the street. One of the places that I went to when I started looking at this development is, I don't know, has anybody been to the San Antonio Riverwalk? I mean, it's really quite charming and beautiful. And what you feel when you go through that is what's going on right where you are. And yet the buildings right next to that are 6, 7, 8 stories tall. You would never know it because you don't ever focus that way. You focus on the experience that you're in. Yeah, you can say, yeah, hi, but that's just not what humans do when they're experiencing and living the space. It's really quite different. They look for what's at their level, what's at something they can interact and relate to it. That's generally what we've seen people do. And that's really where our focus has been. And when we were asked the question, can we lower the buildings? Phil answered it correctly. Yeah, we can do more bigger footprints. We can take up more of that space, and in the trade-off, it seemed better to go up a little bit rather than to go out a little bit. And so that's where we landed. Anyway, hope that answers your question.
Larry, why don't you talk a little bit about next steps? Where are we now after
Yeah.
planning and zoning? And what's
So,
the next?
we're well, tomorrow night is a council meeting. They're gonna, it's the council's, I think, listening session tomorrow.
Yeah.
It'll probably go on for more hours than they wanted to. Yeah, they're all here, but it probably will. And, the council has taken the non-decision from planning commission, and they're saying, okay, now, do we want to create the zoning that would allow this to go forward? This in no way says the project's going forward. All it does is create a set of tools by which this project could go forward if everything else falls into line. And then if nothing happens in another year or so, it just goes away. So this is just a step in the many steps that have to happen. Behind that is getting the TIF in place. Again, if they pass the TIF, it doesn't mean anything other than the city has done its steps so they can use this economic development tool the way they want to. And then as we wrap those things up, if it looks like this is a project that can go forward, then we get into the process of doing the redevelopment agreement. And that's where all the rubber will meet the road. And then immediately behind that, we'll file a final development plan. that has to be approved by the city as complying, and then individual building plans and construction plans. You know, one of the things I want to say about TIF, and I know people have good and bad things to say about it, you know, this isn't the city's first TIF. In fact, if you're familiar with the building at 20 Allen Avenue, and the bread company, little strip of center there, that was done by a TIF. I was the chair of the TIF commission when we did that. It's since paid itself off a few years early, as most TIFs do. And now we've got parking garage the city basically got for nothing, because what they did with TIF is you invite a developer to invest their money rather than the city investing their money to get the goals accomplished that you want to have accomplished. And it's a trade-off. It's a public-private partnership. Mr. Developer, here are your goals, city, here are our goals. When we come to a meeting of the minds, we use this economic development tool to allow them to go forward without the city having to invest a single dime of its money. The other thing the city could do is float a bond issue, do all this themselves and say, hey, we just want to spend this money and do 3-story buildings, and the city can pay for it, which is an equally valid thing to do. It's done all the time. There's a city over in Ohio that did just that. It's called Dublin, Ohio. It's outside of Columbus. They did this marvelous redevelopment area where they said, you know what, we're going to put in all the infrastructure, we're going to float a bond issue, and the developer came and boom, boom. Now they have basically their urban suburban area, which is the heartbeat of the community. Now it's where everybody goes to hang out. And I would hope we could accomplish the same thing here. But these are all tools that get to be used properly or improperly. And I'm sure all of you have read about bad use of TIF. I get it, you know. Largely, we've legislated a lot of that out, but it's still out there. And so hopefully we all do our jobs right, and we can do a good job together and have a really good public-private partnership.
I have just one more question.
Yeah.
I know as we're talking about sustainability, both financially and the environmental impact, where's your base flood elevation? How many feet above the base flood elevation are you planning to build? I know you're not planning to hang on to the building, so when I'm thinking 30 down,
Whoa,
30 years, the base flood
You
elevation,
said we're
like
not planning to
how,
hang on to the buildings.
that was what I had
It's
understood
been
as that.
misreported. So
Okay,
the only thing we're gonna sell is the condominiums, because by their nature, they're sold,
sure.
and the townhomes. If there's an office building, that might be the case, and if there's a hotel, that might be the case, but all of the apartments we intend to build and hold.
So will you
As long
be
as we
building then above the base flood
Oh, yes,
elevation,
everything
and by
must be.
how many feet?
It will depend,
Or
so,
what is your typical,
well, yeah,
build?
so because we're so far up the hill, we'll be 15, 20 feet just because we're up the side of the hill. The townhomes would be the closest to it, and that would be at least a foot above the 100-year flood elevation. And maybe it'll be more, not including the garages. The garages can be in the flood elevation. You probably see that house on stilts across the street.
sure.
You could build that house after we're done about a foot lower, but that's all.
So when you are typing into Zillow and you come up across the condominiums, what's their flood number gonna be? Are people gonna wanna buy it, or are they gonna go, oh my God, this house is in a flood zone and I'm not buying that house because Zillow
shouldn't be
tells
in
me
the-
that's a
It
problem?
shouldn't be the townhomes.
Just out of curiosity.
No, but the townhomes will be in a flood hazard area, but none of the.
Will they have to
condominiums or
carry flood
apartments.
insurance? Will those
Yes,
residents have
yes.
to carry flood insurance? Do you
Everybody
worry
will.
about being able to sell them and that?
No, I've done a lot of development in various floodplains over the years and things that I've learned, and there's you can buy your insurance a little differently than the federal government asks you to. You can buy a federal flood plain insurance to cover your deductible and buy normal insurance at normal rates, and you'll be fine. And we teach that to the people that we work with. And in fact, I was talking to the church about it. They'd like to buy their insurance a little more economically, and we're going to show them how to do just that. But yeah, if you're in a floodplain, you just are. There's nothing you can do about it. We can't make it go away. We can just make it less than what it was. I don't know where the exact boundaries will be to the north of Kirkham, but they'll come in a little bit when we're done.
I have just one more quick question. I know you will probably need to move. As far as energy inside each unit, is there a default when you're building? And I just don't know this. I'm not a builder. Like versus gas versus electric. And can you recommend? I'm just curious to know what that looks like for future, as I think we should stop burning fossil fuels.
So it's really market specific. Usually in St.
Okay.
Louis and apartments, we do all electric.
Okay,
we're working on a project up in Wisconsin right now. And in that market, electricity is way more expensive, so that's gas heat instead of electric, but in St. Louis, we use electric.
okay,
It's a little self-serving for us because if we get a high enough efficiency rating on how we build with using, Energy Star and the installation we had, it actually helps us if we use HUD financing on permanent debt because they realize the benefit to the community. So they incentivize developers to spend the extra money to make units more efficient.
okay,
So that's a kind of standard procedure for on our side.
thank you. Okay. We good, everyone? Feeling-
And we're easy to find. If you want to
Thank
have
you.
other questions, just ask them. We'll respond to them. We respond to all the questions that we get. And, Liz is doing a little bit of juggling to make sure we get all the responses out, and I appreciate that, but we're happy to answer questions you have later on. And I hope we'll do a good job of that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really
Thank you,
appreciate
guys.
it.
We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Pardon me, you mentioned Liz. Is Liz in front of the camera?
I'm
No, she's
sorry,
behind it.
right here.
Can I get a spelling for the notes?
Yes, Austin, Austin.
Thanks a lot.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for
All
coming.
right,
Thank you very much.
Thank
you're
you very
welcome.
much.
Enjoy your
Appreciate
meeting.
your time. Yeah.
So we're gonna go another hour.
Yeah, please.
I'm not leaving, I'm just jumping into it.
I know, I'm really efficient, you know that.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Thanks, guys. We
Everybody.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
thank you.
nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Nice meeting you.
Joel. Yeah, great to meet you. All right, everybody. Well, I'm gonna need to download that in my brain, and metabolize, so, thanks everybody for, your thoughtful questions, and I'm thrilled that we were all here together to hear that. Okay, do we have any visitor comment?
You do not.
Okay, you're cruising right along. Old business, Jeff, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll make this real brief since we just spent an hour on it.
Yeah.
But the subcommittee met, I believe it was September the 28th. I just sent Todd minutes finally.
I can send them out to everybody if you want.
And I think many of you are there. I think, we didn't choose the time to amend the comments we made to the plan commission because there really haven't been any new details that have emerged. And I think what we talked about, I think when this development agreement, when that starts to take shape and we see more specifics of what's being proposed and done, we're going to leave it open to take that up again. So for the time being, we're going to let the plan commission letter stand that we can forward to city council unless, and I'm waiting to hear sort of more on the timeline when the public comment period closes, and we can revisit that.
Yes, so one of the things I will say, Larry's discussed this as sort of sequential. And there are some members of the council who have asked for us to get into the development agreement simultaneously, because if there are things that we can't accomplish in the development agreement or can't agree on, it doesn't make sense to have the community continue down this road. So if there are specific things that you would like to go into the development agreement as a sustainability commission, I don't think waiting to see a long time is necessarily the best strategy. I can't tell you specific timing. Tomorrow night in our work session, we will go through our timing again. And I think we'll hopefully maybe, I don't know, figure out when we at least will vote on the planning ordinance. Or we'll decide to hold the planning ordinance until the development agreement happens, or until the TIF. The TIF, the one deadline I didn't talk about is, in order to meet that state law, the TIF commission has to file its report or be finished with its business by the 11th of November. And so that's in some ways the first domino to fall. So I guess that's a long way of saying, if you're gonna wait for a while to decide on what you want to put in the development agreement, I don't want the train to leave the station before that happens.
Right.
On the other hand, I don't know what's going to happen with our time. How about we talk about this after tomorrow's meeting? I mean, I can talk to, I can talk to you and Jamie or the whole, send out an email to the whole group.
Do you have the sense, or do you know if the public comment period will go beyond tomorrow?
So I'm gonna guess that we'll hold open, well. You can tell that I don't have a good sense by my hesitation here. I think it's possible that we close the public hearing tomorrow night. And that will then mean that we can move more quickly to a vote on the zoning. I kind of doubt that we will close it, but even if we close the public hearing, you can send, the redevelopment agreement isn't technically part of this public
Right,
hearing.
right.
So you can send us your thoughts on the redevelopment agreement at any time.
Right.
Do you feel like, Jeff, that we should reassess that letter and decide if
Well-
we want to?
What I was gonna suggest is, and I'm happy to send it around again to
Yeah.
everyone and CC Katie on it. But resend what we sent the plan commission, and then if you guys have edits, you could suggest those. The question is, do we want to submit comments tomorrow?
Right.
The same comments that we submitted to the plan commission? Or do we want to wait and,
Well, if you want to do it as the commission,
Right.
you don't have to do that tonight. If you want to do it individually as residents, you can do that tonight by
Right.
yourself, as your own. So,
right? Or wait,
yeah, till next meeting, which is
yeah,
November.
Which, to Laura's point,
And I
November
guess the
15th.
the only significant distinction is if we close the public hearing tomorrow, those comments won't be part of the record of the public hearing. That doesn't mean they won't go to city council
Right,
to
right.
influence the decision.
right.
And this is again on the zoning, correct?
This is just the zone.
That seems like a very minor distinction.
I agree, and so I feel like
Okay.
if you want the decision makers to have the information, I don't think whether it's before tomorrow or a little later than that matters.
Yeah, okay, then I suggest we hold on and wait, and, I don't know what's
I'll
gonna.
check in with the two of you after to let you know anything I learn about scheduling.
Okay,
so I'm okay with that. Is everybody good with that plan? Okay. And Jeff, if you wouldn't mind just kind of sending that letter out
Yeah.
again, just so that we're all,
sure,
let's all like take a sec to look over it, and if something does like come up, then maybe we can act more quickly. Fair?
sounds good.
All right, groovy. Jeff, thanks. Okay, the sustainability plan, the subcommittee met last week, and we went over some of the survey results from the resident facing survey. And there are some comments and stuff that are starting to set trends or rise to the top. Jeff did a masterful job of analyzing some of the data for me, because I was like, will you help me? And so, Jeff, are you comfortable if I share that email?
Sure, by all means.
Okay, thanks very much. So I'll send that out to you all as well. And it's, I think the tone of the plan, we'll have a very distinct Webster focus. That's why we did the surveys. As far as what we want it to look like and build it, that's on us. And, we're gonna be Frankensteining pulling some portions from other plans. And then making sure that, Webster's needs are met as well. So that's kind of the goal and the update for the sustainability plan. I am really hopeful that we can, do I have this on the, oh yeah, in the new business, but I'm just gonna talk about it right now. Do an open house type setting for, to kind of close out our public comment period in mid-November. I think I had mentioned a couple of dates. And is this also something that we can just kind of decide on over email? As long as we're including you and Katie?
I can set it up at the rec center.
Okay, great.
Room there.
Okay,
And let's check it against anything else that's going on with the city,
yeah,
other special kinds of meetings, just so you don't have competition.
sure,
Right.
yeah. But
I
we're,
can coordinate that with Katie and Jay.
Yeah.
I know I have it written down somewhere, y'all, where I thought that we might do one of those meetings, but it's might be like the 10th or the 11th of November, which is a Wednesday or a Thursday.
So let's make sure we know when the final TIF commission hearing is.
Oh,
Yes.
that
Don't
would
want
be,
to, don't want to be the
wanna
same
conflict
day.
with that.
no. Mm-mm, no. Okay, go to, no, I'm gonna.
Great turnout.
Yeah.
Actually, you should just do it right after
Both
this.
about it.
However, I think then the sustainability plan will become all about Douglas Hill.
Yeah.
Can we not? Okay, awesome. All right, the Mayor's for Clean Energy is maybe live today. Mayor Welch signed it. Sierra Club and Jenny Starkey here have been working on a public announcement. And
Yes,
thank you.
there, I
That's what I
can
needed.
see it.
Thank you. And is it out?
Yeah, I saw it on the city website.
Oh, cool.
So that happened, everybody, yay,
So-
team. So now we're gonna force everybody to get solar panels.
Force them
I kid. Encourage them. So yeah, I think this is a cool, signal just to say that, hey, this is the direction that we're going to be heading. Okay, Green Cities Challenge was reported out. There's lots of great things that are happening in the region. I just finished submitting all of the data points to Jean, to Earthway Center. And we'll get a nice little write-up and be a part of that for this year. So it's closed for the year. It was funny, I was saying to Jeff earlier, like the bullet points of like accomplishments for this year versus in 2018 when we did it are like 4 or 5, and then in 2018 Yvonne had like a full page, but we've just been so focused on attending meetings and learning and understanding what's going on in our community. So it didn't feel like a lot had been going on, and I was literally like staring at the computer, like, what else can I say that we've been doing? But really, I have to commend all of you for the time that you've spent and you committed to the community and attending these meetings and doing subcommittee meetings. And so it means a lot, and I'm very grateful. And I think our community will benefit from all of this, all of these hours that we've spent on working toward a cleaner, safer, healthier future. So thank you all for doing that. Even though it doesn't like read out to beautiful multiple bullet points, it's really meaningful. So thanks. And then our bag program, that's old business. Do we have any?
So we reopened the grant. I
Okay,
don't know if they talked about it last meeting. We opened a grant. We are rebidding, well, we have to get the bid package. We got the bid package approved by the district. So now we can go out for bids.
okay,
And then once we get the bids in, then we'll go to council, get it approved, and place the order. And then we're planning, they have we'll probably be able to do it in the spring.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have them by then, would be my guess after we get everything approved and we place the order. I don't know how long
Okay.
it's gonna take to put everything together. I
okay,
don't have that yet.
okay. And so do
We don't
we?
know who the vendor is.
Yeah, right. That's what I was just gonna ask. Do we have a vendor yet?
Yeah,
Okay.
We're in the process of bidding it out.
Okay, okay, all right. All right, so just keep us
Yes,
updated about that. We're
I
gonna
should
have,
have the results at the next meeting,
okay,
who our vendor is and where we're at on that.
all right. Do we get
Are
any?
there criteria for the vendors? Like, does it have to be like some?
The
like
percentage of
US
recycled
and-
material and
okay.
like.
Thanks, yes,
Yep.
because I was gonna say, do we have?
Like,
input
we
on
don't
the
wanna have
agenda?
these
Yeah,
about.
right.
Yeah, okay, and there's also a vendor that, either Granite City or Collinsville used, so if
Is it-
they're in Illinois, they,
Magneto,
no, I don't
that's
think
the one
so.
we've been working with the most,
Okay,
that met all of our requirements.
it's expensive.
They're the most
It's made
expensive
in
one
China
also.
though. That was like the. So if I can find that information, can I send that to
Yeah.
you? Okay,
Because we can add it to our vendors.
okay.
Yep.
All right. All right, new business, Pumpkin composting, Elizabeth.
So don't put your pumpkins in your compost bin. They are not supposed to go there. But, and I just sent you an email. Of course, the perennial people emailed me
Oh,
after we had talked.
uh-huh.
So we have been working out a way to get a compost bin for like a 1-day drop for residents. And we sort of have it all planned, except for that, now I have a second company that can do it. So we can get up for $350, we can get a roll-off, one of those like large 20-yard roll-off trash cans from St. Louis Composting, also St. Louis Recycling. They're the same company. We can have it dropped off on Friday, and then they'll come back around and pick it up on Monday. We would just have to be responsible for it for the weekend. But I did hear from Perennial City, who is a small, like they come and they pick up your composting.
Micro hauler.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jamie.
Sure
I'm like,
thing, I
"How
got
do
you."
this?" And all of their composting then goes to like local sustainable urban farms. So it's kind of cool. It's like a very earthy, cool thing. And so they could drop off the trailer Saturday morning and pick it up that evening, which is kind of nice because then we wouldn't be responsible for it. And that would be $320. They said that one of their trailers should hold approximately 20 65-gallon toters. So
Okay.
that might be, what do you think? I mean,
That's pretty close then to the 20-yard roll. Pretty close, but not quite as big.
Yeah, I mean, capacity wise, I think, if it's close. Here's why I worry about the 20-yard roll off, over the weekend is that people love a dumpster.
Yeah, no,
Sure,
They
those
love
sure.
to throw the
furniture
stuff
in
in the
it.
dumpster. Yeah.
I
have
totally
we
hear
don't
you.
have anybody there watching.
Right,
Yeah.
that's my.
As someone who
concern.
likes to throw stuff into dumpsters, I totally know.
Remember, this is going on the city YouTube page.
Bye, Patrick, thank you. Yeah, that sounds attractive to me.
Do you know what location you want to put it?
Well, so I was thinking the rec center parking lot, because I feel like that is a place that people know
Are
where it
trained.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're
Have you
trained to go
talked-
there for like the
Yeah.
electronics or
Have you
something.
talked to Scott Davis about that?
No, I
Because
talked to
don't know
no
if he
one.
would be okay with that.
Okay. So what are our
I mean,
options?
it's a pretty big parking lot
Yeah, but he doesn't want to roll off dumpster sitting in his parking lot.
for just for one day though, like just for the
Well, if
Saturday
you
and
just do the one
Saturday.
Saturday, yeah, but if you do it for the whole weekend, he might.
So if we just did the one Saturday,
Still, you're gonna have to get him to sign off on it. So.
well, does he like cookies or like, how do we, what's Scott, give us the download?
Yeah, what would be the next steps? Would we draft
We
like
need-
the letter that Elizabeth sent
I can,
you?
I can give you his email
Okay,
if you want. I give it to you right now. It's his last name, Davis. And then another S for Scott
DAVISS, okay.
at WebsterGrowsMo.gov.
But like, what if you also like,
And I will reach out to you.
okay, sent it you, because you can use your,
At Webster Groves Mo,
Muscle.
not Webster Groves dot mo, just
It's
Webster Groves Mo.
WebsterGrowsMo.gov.
.gov. Okay,
A backup might be to try and involve a school district and do it on their lot that is adjacent to the city lot. If for some reason there's a problem with the city
Because
lot,
that
Gotcha.
lot,
because that one's already all torn up.
it needs to
I
be
see, so
refinished.
that's like not all right.
It's not all.
That's Hickson's lot behind.
Okay,
Okay.
that's to me.
Yeah,
that's
that's,
one
I
of
assumed
the-
that was where it would go.
Yeah, that's the
That's
school
not the
district's lot.
recreation lot, yeah.
But
Okay,
even also the school district
Recreation lot is
might do
new
some
paved.
promotional stuff.
well, yeah,
if
I
they're a
assumed we would
partner.
contact all
Yeah.
the school district, or all the school district, and then all
Yeah.
of the, like, the college school and the Catholic
Right.
schools and.
Yeah. Yeah, to let
Those would
the,
be-
right, to let the kids know, to let the parents know. Hey, bring it and drop it off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
so
And I can let Jenny Starkey know and she'll get it out too, so.
shit, we might need the 20-yarder.
we'll see, just one for the start, and then if we get too
Okay.
many pumpkins, then next year, we
Right.
can.
Exactly.
Would we be
So is the
reaching
city gonna
out?
pay for this?
Well,
Why are you looking at me?
I
don't
guess
know
I'll put it
what
out of
I'm
my
doing.
budget, huh?
Yeah,
I think our
You don't
commission
have a
has a
budget?
budget.
No,
Oh, did it get stricken?
there's never been a budget.
That's not true.
I've
That's,
never found one,
okay, because when
or else I don't have access to it then.
Steve Wiley told us once
I
that
remember that.
$4,000, he said we had a budget for do you remember that, John?
Absolutely, I remember that. I thought it was $2,500.
Come on, John.
I mean, either way.
Sorry.
I will-
Let's talk to the current city
I will talk
manager
to
about
my, I will
Or
talk to
Eric, this is the
Eric,
head
this
of
is the
finance,
finance guy. I'll talk to the finance guy and find out.
Okay. If not, I can cut the city a check for $50 and we
I can
all-
find it in my budget, my public works budget, but man, that's gonna hurt. No, I'm just kidding.
It's gonna
All
make
right,
us
well,
pay later.
see what Dr. People says. Hopefully there's like a little slush fund. A jar of quarters. Come on, I'm
Don't
dreaming.
say that.
I'm dreaming.
Get the laundry money.
Cleaning up the pumpkins all
We
around.
do that in our budget.
Certainly,
We
you
don't
can
say-
get the pumpkins and sprinkle them on the roads in the ice and winter.
That's right,
Yeah,
that's
there
right.
you
We're
go.
just saving you the pumpkin pieces that would be on
Exactly.
the road to be picked up.
This is where I would enjoy that.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, and then reaching out to the school district, I guess I'll reach out to John and Jason, who's head of facilities there. Is
Jason,
anybody?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
For the pumpkins?
Yeah.
Okay,
So we'll circle back after this
Okay.
and
And I'll
figure
get with
this
Scott
out.
tomorrow,
okay.
so hold off on your email. while I
Okay.
talk to him.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do you want us to draft it and send it to you for approval, or what do we want to do with that? Does it matter?
You can send it to me first. yeah.
Okay.
I'll reach out to him tomorrow.
So just so I have consensus, we think that the perennial city is probably the way to go with the 1 day, Saturday only.
Yeah.
Would
Perfect.
they be responsible for it then? Are they gonna have somebody there all day or?
I think we would still have to cover like whatever the 4-hour period
Okay.
is that and I assume we would just do like 4 hours.
Yeah, because the commission
Yeah.
volunteer.
Just
Yeah.
have one
Yeah.
go out there and just-
Yeah. Okay,
And when people are coming by and have questions. whatever, you-
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, hey, you need to go and do our. Wow.
There you go.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, now it's
QR
open.
code,
The
yeah.
surveys
Are-
are open.
You have to have a little.
QR code,
Yeah.
yeah.
Here, scan this and go. do
And
this.
I could be
If
like,
only we had a bag or easy bag.
Yeah, exactly. You can hand them out of this, yeah.
I was just gonna
next
say,
year,
here's
next
your
year.
bag
we'll have it
voucher.
ready.
Yeah, next year, we're already left.
Okay, team, awesome. All right, we already did the sustainability plan open house. Laura, do you?
Let's see if I can go fast. Yeah, I do have kind of a list. We talked about some of it. Public hearing tomorrow night. There were 40 some odd questions submitted to staff and the development team from the prior meeting, the October 5th meeting. All the answers to those are now on the Douglas Hill page. They came finally through with everything except one question to the school district. Saturday is Make a Difference Day. If you're interested in doing any of the projects, you can go through Parks and Rec's website to sign up for some of them. TIF hearing is the 28th. That's their date for the public hearing. And as I said, they have to finish by the 11th of November. The Business Roundtable, which is our first public engagement about the American Rescue Plans funds, is scheduled for 8:30 on November 4th, and it's going to be at Webster University.
Can anybody attend that? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I think it's a public meeting. So
Okay.
yes. Yep.
Okay.
We started on Friday, a citywide strategic planning process with kind of a work session with council members. And yes, sustainability was part of that discussion, and we're kind of refining some broad things to take as questions to the public. So there will be a point in time where this group is going to want to weigh in on that strategic plan. How about if I skip until next time, my Missouri Municipal League panels, since we're running, I went to a couple that are related to this commission that were quite good. And then finally, Larry didn't mention it, but there was a petition for a public referendum that has been filed with the city. Right now, they're verifying they have the adequate number of signatures, and it would require a public vote on 3 things. It would say, the first thing would be that anytime eminent domain is used, it would require a public vote of the residents of Webster Groves. Second thing is anytime there is an approval of a variance to a stream buffer of more than, and I can't remember what they put in that, it would be required to get a public vote. And the third part is that voter approval would be required for any change of zoning uses in the city of Webster Groves. I don't ask me what that means because I don't yet know what that means. We don't know until the signatures are verified whether this will be on an election before April or whether it will be on the election in April. But my sense is last time they did this, they got enough signatures to be on the ballot. I don't think they would have turned it in if they weren't pretty confident they did this time as well. This, as you probably have surmised by what's in there, is a direct response to Douglas Hill, because if any of these things pass, I think SG Collaborative people would have a very hard time going forward. So that's my report.
Laura, Laura, the things that went through on that initiative, was there any discussion with the city? Is that even legal, what they're asking to do? Is it constitutional?
So we don't know yet, because of it, we don't go down that road until they verify the signatures. They put it in two parts, which we know that they had to do that at a minimum to make it legal, because you can't ask for a bunch of things in one referendum. So hopefully we will very soon understand the timeline, and I plan to ask that question.
Okay,
What are the, because, I mean, forget how you feel about Douglas Hill, this is a significant change in the work of your elected representatives.
Right.
Do you want that or not?
Right.
Because it affects way more than Douglas Hill.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
So John, I imagine by the next meeting, I'll have more information on the timeline and what sort of the legal implications of this are.
great.
Okay.
Hey, just real quick, one more thing, guys. So trying to get the attendance here. So we've got the two Jeffs, Laura, Todd, Elizabeth, Michael, Jamie, Patrick, and Paul. Did I miss anybody?
Got it.
All right, thanks.
Good work, bud. Okay, team. Todd, do you have anything else you want to add? Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. I mean, you wanted me to say something about the stencil for the,
Oh, yeah.
we have not ordered it yet.
Okay.
We'll get it this winter. So we'll be ready for the spring,
Okay, so that's super exciting.
which will probably be like late March, early April when we can do the striping.
Okay.
That's for the bike lane?
The bike lanes, yeah.
Should we have like an inaugural ride?
That would be,
so
we should do an
fun.
event like
Wait
that.
till,
That would
wait
be
till the paint
great.
dries though.
I know.
You don't get all over your back and you're falling.
John, it'll be our Webster Ramble.
We can have our bags there, ready to go. Inaugural ride.
Oh my gosh,
That is an excellent idea, actually.
I think it's a great idea.
It is a
Yes.
great idea.
Okay, that's super fun. And then, all right, great. I think we're good. Our next meeting is November 15th, but I'm sure we will be in communication a couple other times between now and
Yes.
then. Okay, motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Elizabeth?
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, we're all set, team. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you,
Figure out how to
everyone.
turn
Thank
all this off.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I told him I would. Todd, if you wanna,
Okay. I'm gonna go turn the laptop off.
there you go.